those medical examiner vans where the remains of those deputies have been placed, and behind them many more law enforcement units that will be taking to Sheriff's Road here in the next couple of minutes. It's going to be a long procession, but distance-wise, a relatively short distance by the time they actually get to the medical examiner's office here. But the actual procession itself might actually be about at least a mile long before this is all said and done. Again, it's only about a 2 to 3 mile drive, but it's going to be a lot of units in tail here, as you can see, before they make their way over to Eastern Avenue, onto the entrance ramp for the 10 freeway, which will be shut down momentarily. In fact, as I look out the window, it looks like they have now shut down the westbound lanes of the 10 freeway. I want to keep the camera right here. You don't have to show it, Robbie, but in the next couple of seconds, if you could, you can. We can swing it over to the left just briefly and just kind of show traffic has now been brought to a halt here as they have shut down the westbound lanes of the 10 freeway. That is the overpass right there. That's, I believe, the Eastern Avenue overpass, where there is a contingent of deputies and fire department personnel ready to pay their respects as the procession moves over the 10 freeway and eventually onto the freeway for that short drive over to County General, where the medical examiner's office is. You can see Sheriff's Road now flooded with law enforcement units with their lights and sirens on. A very moving moment here as these officers are now in transport to the medical examiner's office, Mark.
And we also know that when they do get to the medical examiner's office, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, Chris, there are, first responders and people there positioned as well to kind of receive these deputies on the end of this procession.
That's right. There are dozens and dozens of deputies waiting at the medical examiner's office, also fire department personnel waiting there as well. This is something we have become accustomed to when anything like this happens, whether it is for a fatality. In many cases, they will shut that down and basically lock down that section of the hospital, because right next to the medical examiner's office is the emergency room for County General, where officers who are shot in the line of duty are transported. And it's a similar routine. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with a procession like this, they have many more units in place, pre-positioned, as you mentioned, right along Marengo Street, which is now flooded on both sides of the road with deputies from the LA County Sheriff's Department and other municipalities as well, ready to receive this procession and receive the bodies of those fallen deputies. So you can see Sheriff's Road still lined with a number. I mean, we're talking already several dozen and many more now driving onto Sheriff's Road here. You're still looking at many of the unmarked units. You saw those motor units in the front, and then behind them are going to be probably upwards of close to 100 marked units, but before all is said and done here, by the time they get onto the freeway here. So it looks like they are getting closer to the overpass there. You can see in fact, that's them. Is that right? Is that them right there, Rob? Is that one? No. So they're getting ready to shut down that overpass, and the procession should be reaching the 10 freeway here any second, guys.
All right, let's go to Sid Garcia. He is live along the route on Eastern Avenue. Sid, they're passing right by your position right now, correct?
Yeah, and if we go over to the left, you can see the two deputies have been manning the road closure here. They're standing at attention, paying their respects to their fellow deputies who died. I got to be honest with you, man, it was a little emotional seeing those 3 medical examiner vans, one with each deputy, and they're just driving by here. We've been here all day talking to our sources as well as those that we know in law enforcement and in the neighborhood. And, it wasn't that long ago we were doing this for a fallen LAPD officer, and before that, Baldwin Park PD dealing with the loss there. I mean, it's like you said, Mark, earlier, this is happening too frequently right now. And I remember several years ago covering a funeral of a firefighter at the cathedral in downtown Los Angeles, and, hundreds, if not thousands, of first responders were there. And the guy that I've known for a long time, we were just talking, he says, he misses the days when an officer would die in the line of duty, they didn't know what to do or how to handle it or how to take care of things. And then he said to me at the time, they're just getting too good at doing this, which means, they're dealing with the death of officers who have fallen in the line of duty. Here again, that's the procession of officers, LA County Sheriff's deputies, and we've seen, I believe we saw some LAPD, but you know, it was tough to see those 3 coroner vans drive by with the remains. Let's send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Sid, thank you for those details. Let's go ahead and get back to Chris Christie now in Air 7 as this procession makes its way. Chris?
Yeah, they've just made their way over the 10 freeway on the overpass and now making their way onto the westbound side of the 10 freeway. There is a motor unit in the lead. Here comes the whole group of them, followed by those 3 medical examiner vans right behind that group of motorcycles right there. Apologize for the exhaust in the way there. It's a little bit of heat that's in between us and them. We're looking at about 2 to 3 miles off into the distance as they come towards us here on the 10 freeway, which has been shut down. You can see traffic is moving on the eastbound side, but the westbound side completely shut down for this procession as this lengthy deputy procession, 3 of them now making their way to the medical examiner's office here in Boyle Heights. You can see now on the freeway, again, this is going to be a long contingent of officers that will likely make their way closer to the actual medical examiner's office before all of the actual tail end of the procession is on the freeway. It's going to take some time when you consider the number of units in this procession, but in general, the 3 medical examiner's offices, the 3 medical examiner vans will make their way here in a short time because, again, it's not that long of a distance. It's just going to be a very, very lengthy procession accompanied by not 1 but 2 LA County Sheriff's helicopters who are flying at low altitude directly over the lead of this procession here, as you can see now making its way down the westbound lanes of the 10 freeway, guys.
Officers and deputies standing at attention as the procession goes by, paying their respects to their fallen comrades here. Are you seeing representatives of other jurisdictions either along the route or in the processions?
Yeah, we can't make them out from our position, Mark, but I can guarantee you that there are dozens of agencies involved in this procession. Again, as I mentioned, probably not only from across the county of LA, but even from our neighboring jurisdictions in Ventura, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County. When something like this happens, the entire law enforcement community is affected, and they come together as brothers and sisters in a situation like this, and they will spare no expense in many cases to give these officers and deputies the proper send-off here as they make their way not only to the medical examiner's office, but eventually, in a couple days from now, to their respective funerals and final resting spots. So it's going to be a tough weekend here, but this is just the first step of getting these officers out to the medical examiner's office, where there will be a full investigation, and then off to, or then the bodies obviously will be released to the families. But you can see a number of agencies involved in this motorcade. We can't tell you exactly which agencies and who is who, only because we're just looking so far, we can't make out the markings, but there's a lot of representation here from across the county and from across Southern California.
Certainly, Chris. Well, thank you for that. We do also want to get now to Bruce Thomas, law enforcement expert that's been helping us out with our coverage throughout the day, to give us some insight into processions like these, what's happening right now, and what is still to come over this evening. Bruce, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. You know, obviously it's a very tragic day for the Sheriff's Department. They will have a procession. It's a way of paying respect and treating the deputies, the fallen deputies, with dignity. They will make their way to the coroner's office, at which point flag-draped coffins will be offloaded from the vans and taken inside with an honor guard saluting and paying respects to each one as they arrive.
Tough day for you, I would imagine. You're retired, but you still certainly have ties to the law enforcement community. This is a difficult day whenever this happens, and I can only imagine how much more so when you have 3 families affected, 3 deputies who have been lost. What does that do within a department? What sort of effect does it have on the people who are left to carry on the mission?
You know, people will just say, oh, we suck it up. Well, we have emotions and we have feelings. And each deputy will grieve in their own way. especially the ones that know these three fallen deputies. I knew one of them, and it's tragic.
We feel you, man. I'm sorry that you're going through this, and I'm sorry that you about the loss that you must be feeling right now. For those who can't understand this, who aren't connected to this in the way that you are, can you convey some sense of the grief that the deputies are going through? And yeah, they have feelings. You have emotions here. These are your comrades, your co-workers, and yet you still have a mission. And these folks will be back on duty tomorrow. Some of them later today.
Yeah, Mark, you're 100% right. You know, it's like losing a family member, and that's in essence what you're doing. You are losing a family. Our family is 10,000 strong, many, many thousands more throughout Southern California, Northern California, and the United States. So it's like losing a family member. You grieve in your own way, and then you kind of have to go on. And in this case, law enforcement has a job to do.
You personally knew one of the deputies who was involved in this, and we can't release his name, but what can you tell me about that person?
You know, I interacted with him when I was a supervisor on the sheriff's department. They were with the bomb squad, arson explosives. And I can tell you the professionalism displayed by him and the others, and even the ones not associated with this incident, is just tremendous. These are some of the most highly trained and respected individuals, not only in our department, but around Southern California. And as David Ono talked about, the nation with the SWAT, the SEB guys.
Yeah, certainly. And we're seeing this, procession pass under the flag here. And I believe, Bruce, unless there's anything else you want to highlight for our viewers in terms of this process and what you can share, as we wrap up, we have another reporter down on the ground, Tim Caputo, that I think we want to toss things over to now to share his perspective.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is, you know what? Thank God for the sheriff's department, for the police and the fire, and just, we got a tough job, and just be respectful of us.
Yeah, well, Bruce, thank you so much for your insight, for your service, and for all your help with today's coverage. We appreciate it. Hang tight. We'll probably get back to you at some point. Now we want to go ahead and turn things over to Tim Caputo. Tim, what can you tell us?
Well, we are outside the medical examiner's office, and the procession is not far away. The helicopters we now hear above, we've heard Chris Christie talk that it's not a terribly far distance. It's about 3.5 miles from the training facility where these three deputies were killed earlier this morning to the medical examiner's office right here on my right. But as that procession rolls through, every mile, every minute, every moment as it comes through is meaningful, not just to the families and friends and coworkers, as you heard, of those three deputies who were killed this morning, but of all the deputies out here this afternoon that are paying their respects, lining Marengo Street just past the hospital here as the procession will come through to the medical examiner's office. I walked up there past the hospital. On the left, you'll see that line of tan shirts of the LA County Sheriff's Department, each and every one of those deputies standing in front of their cruisers with their lights on. Obviously, the American flag in the middle, hoisted up there by the both county and city fires department, as we see off in the distance the flashing lights of the beginning of that procession. Obviously a somber day, not just for the department, not just for those family members and friends of those three deputies who were killed, but for the entire community. As I went up there a little bit earlier, tried to speak with some people who have come out here to watch this procession go by, it seems everyone has some sort of connection to the Sheriff's Department itself. You mentioned, Chris Christie did, that County General here is a place where officers who are injured often go. I spoke with a young lady who works at the hospital and says she feels really close to this because she's been there when there have been deputies and police officers who have been treated there. I spoke with a gentleman who was visiting a family member who was here at the hospital. He's got a family member in the Sheriff's Department. He brought his grandson outside. He brought his son outside. And while they have a loved one in the hospital right now, they are standing outside to pay their respects to these three deputies who were killed this morning. There's also an uncertainty to all this This is a very unique situation where you have an explosive device essentially go off out of nowhere at that training facility, and everyone looking for answers, but understanding they may not come quickly. It certainly won't be today, and at the moment, the focus is on the heartbreak. The focus is on those colleagues, those loved ones, and those friends who have lost their brothers in arms out here. You know, in fact, we won't show you out of respect for the family, but it does appear that this procession will be met not just by a large contingent of the Sheriff's Department, but family members. It is absolutely heartbreaking to see a maybe 5, 6-year-old young boy, excuse me, wearing an oversized sheriff's deputy shirt, clearly a family member. There are family members with him. They are nonstop wiping the tears from their face. As the procession comes down the street, like I said, there are connections, some from afar, some who may not know these deputies who were killed, and some who know them all too well and who are heartbroken and grieving today. This is a long procession, and as you see those deputies saluting the line of motorcycles leading this charge with the 3 medical examiners' vans carrying those 3 fallen deputies, make the turn into the beginning of the medical examiners complex here. I'm going to pause for a second and let you watch as they take the turn inside, because it is truly a sight to behold. Those vans turning in, obviously, with many vehicles following behind them. Obviously, there's work to be done to figure out exactly what went wrong this morning and what happened with that explosive device for it to go off at that training facility, killing those 3 veteran deputies. 74 years combined between those 3 deputies. So these were no novice law enforcement officers. These were no young men on the job. These were seasoned veterans. So clearly something went awry this morning. The ATF, the FBI, obviously part of the investigation. But as I mentioned, right now, today, at this moment, the focus is on the heartbreak. The focus is on comforting those loved ones and those colleagues who have lost 3 of their own. As this procession has now reached the medical examiner's office just beyond the fence there, you might be able to see some extra deputies saluting those vans as they pull up. Just beyond that, a number of family members clearly grief-stricken and heartbroken about what unfolded this morning. Mark, Michelle.
And you have noticed that you have noted that family members have arrived there at the medical examiner's office, and some touching images that you relayed to us, and how difficult it must be to do that given the level of emotion that you're seeing and that we're all experiencing watching this. But this is one of those moments where you really understand the level of sacrifice that law enforcement officers are willing to undergo, and their families have to undergo.
Yeah, for the families, you know, too, that are part of this. It's easy for us to look at these images and identify, you know, the law enforcement because they're in uniforms. But as you have mentioned and noted, Tim, there are, as we can imagine, amongst these individuals involved in this procession, family members who are, you know, having to process this in real time as we are dealing with the emotions of just seeing this, you know, to put ourselves in their shoes, to imagine what it must be like to hear, you know, this morning that your loved one has been tragically killed in this, you know, accidental explosion, it seems, and to have to, you know, take part in this procession and, you know, go through this afternoon and do this. I mean, just to imagine what they're going through is certainly emotional. And so we understand, you know, the emotions that come with you bringing us this report from where you're standing outside of the medical examiner's office.
And yet so absolutely necessary that we convey this to our viewers, and we continue to do our jobs as the sheriff's deputies and other law enforcement agents down here do theirs. Let's get to Chris Christie in Air 7. He is overhead watching the procession, a lengthy procession, a number of agencies involved, and it has come, at least the main part of it has come to its conclusion. Chris, where are you?
Yeah, it has, Mark. Just a really heavy moment here. We are right at the medical examiner's office. Those motor units and the 3 medical examiner vans have made their way into the parking lot, while the rest of the procession now makes its way around Marengo Street behind Keck Medical Center there. The families are at that medical examiner's office. You heard Tim there. You have to presume at this point that we're talking about somebody's son, husband, father, who was lost. 3 lives snuffed out in the instant that bomb exploded, that suspected bomb exploded this morning. 74 years of collective experience, a 19-year veteran, a 22-year veteran, and I believe a 33-year veteran of the department as a part of this arson and explosive detail, part of the Special Enforcement Bureau. As the deputies were arriving here at the medical examiner's office, the back of the procession was still making its way onto the 10 freeway. Just to give you an idea of the scale of this procession, they are now finally exiting. The final units in this procession are now exiting the 10 freeway, and just moments ago, traffic has been restored and reopened on the westbound side of the 10 freeway. So business along the 10 freeway is now back open, westbound and eastbound traffic. The procession now on surface streets here in Boyle Heights, as those deputies have arrived along Mission Street here in Lincoln Heights. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, certainly already, emotional to see this procession as it's made its way now to the medical examiner. But we also know the images that we're going to see of these deputies' bodies being pulled from the back of the vans that they're in, and then, the honor guard honoring them with their salute in the moments to come. So we're certainly still keeping an eye on what happens next. And a group of people that, again, we're just assuming here these are close relatives, family of these 3 fallen deputies.
Yeah, it certainly does appear that these are the family members. Those would have been in the vans that were trailing after the 3 vans carrying the bodies of those fallen deputies. There were a number of other vans that we presume would be family members. They are gathered there. They are under the protection and the watch of the colleagues of the deputies who were lost. They are there gathered. You see them and absorbing all of this along with all of us. As well as members of the community. Sid Garcia was out there talking to somebody who lived nearby, and people who have come out. And it's worth noting the ties to the East LA and Lincoln Heights community within the Sheriff's Department. That Biscayla's facility is named after a sheriff who was the 27th sheriff of Los Angeles County. His name was Eugene Biscaylas, and he served for 26 years as a sheriff of Los Angeles County, and he was born in Boyle Heights. So the ties to that community, to that part of the city and county of Los Angeles, go back many, many decades. And so you see people who have a special affinity for the department that are also showing up to show their respects as members of the community.
Yeah, that individual that Sid spoke with, sharing how the sheriff's training facility was something that she and her colleagues growing up noticed. It was something that they honored and respected as a part of their neighborhood. So when you think about that and what she's witnessing now today, and even what she's sharing with her children that were also there with her, it has just even a heavier impact to know that this facility that's in your backyard is part of this tragedy that she probably never imagined or thought about would be something she's having to kind of deal with and process. So an impact not only on the departments, not only on first responders across Southern California, but community members in East Los Angeles that are neighbors with the Sheriff's Department training facility there.
And Sheriff Luna has arrived there. You see him just barely kind of peeking out from behind that pillar on the right part of your screen on the image there to your left. There he is. He has arrived, so he in his capacity as Sheriff of Los Angeles County is part of the team that is escorting the bodies of those fallen deputies to the medical examiner's office. It is he who will, we assume, speak and try to do his best to comfort the families of those fallen deputies. A part of the job that no law enforcement executive relishes, but it is something, unfortunately, that so many of them have to do. Because it's a dangerous job, and in this case, a very difficult day for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
Let's get back to Chris Christie now in Air 7. Chris.
Right, Michelle. So a bulk of that procession has now parked adjacent to the medical examiner's office. A lot of those law enforcement officers now exiting their vehicles to take part in the ceremonial march here as those bodies pass by. You can see them lining up on both sides of the access road here at the medical examiner's office. The family being kept back just a little bit. A lot of coordination and choreography about to take place here before this gets underway. Not sure how long this is going to take. It could take some time. In the past, it's moved by sometimes rather quickly, and sometimes it does take some time before everybody gets into position here. But you can see a bulk of it looks like the bulk of the families are now being kept at the end of that road there, and the officers are lining both sides of the street here that leads directly to the medical examiner's loading dock. So we're going to see them come by here probably in the next several minutes, but again, it could take some time. A little hard to tell. Just kind of depends on how many people are actually part of this procession. Numbers that we don't exactly have, but as I mentioned, at least everybody is now parked. They are off the freeway. Now it's just a matter of getting into position before taking the next steps, guys.
And there's a choreography to this. There didn't used to be. It happened much less frequently than it does these days, but there is an effort now to really make sure that that these officers, these deputies, are given their due, given their respect by the community, by the families, by the department, and by the various other agencies with which they may have been in contact and which may have shown up here to pay their respects. There is a choreography to it. There's a ceremony that has grown over the years to include the procession that we're seeing here, not just the procession of vehicles down the road, but now at the medical examiner's office, a procession as well. To basically, it's kind of to convey to the families, as they walk through there, that they're not alone, that they have the backing of an entire department.
Yeah, and when I think about, just the statistic that this is the deadliest, day for the department, deadliest loss of life since 1857, and, that's more than 160 years, and we're kind of talking about this ceremonial procession and what happens. I mean, you think back to that time, I'm sure it looks much different now, but certainly important, as you mentioned, for these families to know that they are not alone, that they have so many resources, their brothers and sisters who worked beside their loved one in the department, kind of supporting them through this difficult time. And, we have seen some people, at least it appeared, in that group of family members kind of wiping away some tears, understandably, as they kind of get ready for the really difficult moment of actually seeing their loved one, in a casket, with flag draped over it, really driving home what's happened.
Yeah, it becomes even more real, and they want, you want to be supported, you want to feel supported in that moment when it becomes very, very clear and real to you that the extent of your loss and the depth of your loss. It's good to have people there that are supporting you, people you may never have met, obviously, but who share with you the grief and will offer their support at this most difficult of times. So you see it basically, so much of the Sheriff's Department, it's some 10,000 strong. A good portion of that department is here now at the medical examiner's office. Sheriff Luna there still at the side of the coroner's van, coordinating with his top brass about how things are going to go. And there is a protocol that they're going to follow and to do their best to pay their respects and give these fallen deputies their due.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we've mentioned it, the investigation into this still happening in the other part of town in East Los Angeles outside that training facility. There is still work to be done, so many unanswered questions this afternoon.
Air 7 booth.
And what we hope to do, what we hope will happen fairly soon, is that we get to know the names of these deputies and get to release them so that people will know who they are. We're going to try to find out as much about them so that we know the extent of the loss here. And we have some names to put with these years of experience and the level of training you know, we've talked to quite a few people who have known these people personally. And we want to be able to convey that to the rest of our viewers here in Southern California as soon as it's appropriate to do so. Once all the family members of all the deputies have been notified, we will get that approval and we'll be able to release the names publicly as well. And you will get to learn about these individuals and what they've left behind, their families and their sacrifice. And it'll be part of the story that we'll be dealing with for a number of days until they are finally laid to rest here.
Yeah.
And then the investigation, as you said, will continue.
Yeah, we always want it to be about, you know, that to be the focus. Obviously, a part of the story is this explosion and what happened, but whenever we're able to, you know, get information on who these individuals were as husbands, fathers, sons, daughters, you know, whatever it may be, that's the part that we really hope sticks with our viewers, is hearing more about those individuals. And when it's appropriate to do so, again, as Mark just mentioned, we will certainly be covering that aspect of the story as well. But for right now, the focus is this ceremonial, you know, procession that has just arrived at the medical examiner's office outside of County General Hospital. Right now, you're seeing the activity as there are sheriff's deputies lining both sides of this entranceway here. Now that line kind of doubling. There's so many people there taking part in this that, again, on both sides, it seems now there's going to be an additional line behind that first line to make room and space for everyone there paying their respects here. So we do want to get back now to Eyewitness News reporter Tim Caputo, who is outside the medical examiner's office with more on what he's seeing from his vantage point right now. Tim?
Michelle, Mark, we saw that long procession work its way over here to the medical examiner's office, and what has happened after all these vehicles parked here, all these vehicles that were part of the procession, all of the deputies, dozens upon dozens of them that were lined up on the street here, paying respects as the procession came through, have walked up the street and worked their way alongside what is essentially a ramp on up into the medical examiner's office. The three white vans, they're a little bit blocked by some of the pillars and fences here where those three fallen deputies' bodies are. They're inside the vans at the moment, but they're waiting until it seems all the deputies who are here get up and in place. I can tell you, pull to the right here a little bit. And I just want to show you up the street a little bit, because I want to show you, you saw the people waiting in the line there, and I want to show you even more of the first responders. These seem to be some firefighters as well. It's not just the sheriff's department out here. Obviously, the big trucks are from both the county and city fire departments that are here paying their respects. They are also working their way up the street before this part of the procession begins. Obviously, we mentioned there were family members, or what appeared to be family members. They've been here for maybe an hour, hour and a half or so at the medical examiner's office, kind of waiting, along with Sheriff Luna. We saw him a short time ago standing here for this next aspect of the procession to take place. Obviously, a somber afternoon as everyone is not only getting into place, but a lot of them knew these deputies. They worked with these deputies. I mentioned it before, but I want to say it again. 74 years of service with the Sheriff's Department. That is decades upon decades for each one of these individual deputies. And you think of the colleagues they worked with, the lives they touched, the communities they helped out over the course of several decades between each of them. And that's the kind of impact that it's having today, because whether it was a chance encounter a couple of years ago or something that happened just yesterday, there were a lot of people touched and moved by this. Obviously, this is a somber and heartbreaking moment here, and we'll stay out here as this part of the procession continues. Mark, Michelle.
All right, Tim, thank you. This is David Ono in for Mark Brown right now. Michelle Fisher continues to join me, and thank you, Tim, for that update as Tim is sitting there watching this firsthand, and you see the enormous amount of manpower that has showed up to show their respects. These are all servants to the community, keeping us safe, and it shows you the impact of what this tragedy has had within our community. The day started at 7:30 this morning with this terrible tragedy, 3 dead. We knew that immediately. We still don't know who they are, but we know what they did, and that is play an important role in keeping us safe here in Southern California. And we often talk about law enforcement, Michelle, and the sacrifices they make, but there is no time that is more poignant than a moment like right now, when you see it and you feel it. You see family members that are affected by this. You see cohorts and brothers and sisters that they do this with every single day. you feel that emotional impact.
Yeah, we feel it here in the studio as we're watching these images. Our reporters on the ground that have been helping us cover this, I mean, you can hear it in their voices. They feel the emotion of the community members, of these first responders, of these sheriff's deputies. It is just, you know, really palpable throughout the community today because, again, as you mentioned, it's unfortunate, but when something like this happens, it is that reminder just in your face of, wow, this is a really dangerous profession that people have signed up to do in order to protect us, you and I, in order to protect their community. So someone that knows that firsthand, Bruce Thomas, retired law enforcement and a law enforcement expert who's been joining us this afternoon. We're going to get back to Bruce now as we continue to watch this play out. Bruce, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bruce, so we're just, you know, kind of talking about the emotions of this day, and you have been kind of speaking about that as well. Can you talk to us now about, you know, what it's like as we see now double lines on both sides of sheriff's deputies lining up to get ready to kind of honor these three deputies?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're honoring these three brave individuals from the arson explosives detail. Sheriff's Department. They're going to offload the caskets draped in American flags one at a time and make their way up that little roadway, which time all members in uniform and those not will provide a salute and a way of honoring and basically giving a send-off.
Wow, okay, so you mentioned...
Did we lose? Oh.
No, I think Bruce is still there, but you know,
there.
you mentioned members in uniform and some, which is a great point you make, not in uniform that maybe are not working today or whatever that made their way here, still feeling like it was important to be a part of this. And we know some of the people that we're seeing also in, you know, regular clothing are family members as well. So that's important to highlight as well.
Yeah, that's correct. And it looks like this procession along the roadway, you have members in uniform, the daily patrol uniform, and then as you get closer to the coroner's office, it looks like they segregated into SEB and arson explosives and sheriff's hazmat, as these are the members of the unit that these three were associated with.
Bruce, I know I'm going to have to read a new statement that we just received. It's new information regarding what may have happened or some connection to it. You might already know that. That's what I suspect because you are very connected, but I'm going to read this right now. We'll get back to you in just a second, but this is a statement that says, on Thursday, our arson explosives detail personnel who were involved in today's fatal incident responded to the 800 block of Bay Street in Santa Monica for a call for service to assist Santa Monica PD. Homicide detectives are in the process of obtaining a search warrant for the location, and out of the abundance of caution, the LAPD bomb squad, ATF, and FBI will search the location for any potential explosive materials. At this time, it is not determined if the devices found yesterday have any correlation to today's critical incident. And it says that Santa Monica PD is assisting the Sheriff's Department in this incident and have evacuated the residents in the complex. They are in the process of locating a shelter for displaced residents. So that is part of the early part of the investigation that's going on right now. Bruce, if you could stand by 1 second, I just want to get back to Tim Caputo because right now we want to prioritize this procession and get to Tim, and then I'll get back to you, Bruce. But Tim, what's the latest?
Well, David, it appears the family is just off to the side at the moment, and I believe Sheriff Robert Luna and some other are speaking with them at the moment. It's a little tough to see because all the vehicles that were part of the procession are now parked in the street, but it looks as though as everyone kind of watches all the deputies who are lined up, them addressing the family members, you could see a little bit maybe potentially behind that fence of them comforting each other, hugging each other, during this very difficult time, as it appears the bodies of those three deputies are about to be taken out of those medical investigators' vans. You mentioned the Santa Monica aspect to this, the investigation clearly very early on, and there's a lot to learn about it, what exactly went wrong this morning. A somber arrival as the bodies of three veteran members of the LA County Sheriff's Department's arson and explosives detail are escorted into the medical examiner's office. The deputies killed have a combined 74 years of service, and Sheriff Robert Luna called them the best of the best.
I have met with 2 of the 3 families thus far, and as you can imagine, those were extremely challenging conversations.
It appears the deputies were handling some kind of explosives at the department's East LA training facility around 7:30 this morning. ABC News has learned the explosive had been brought in from what appeared to be a routine call and was believed to have been inert when it exploded. Sheriff Luna says this unit responds to 1,100 calls a year, but it's unclear what went wrong today. The FBI and ATF are now involved in this massive investigation.
This is, unfortunately, the largest loss of life for us as the LA County Sheriff's Department since 1857.
The deputies who were killed also worked at the Board of Supervisors.
These 3 had connections throughout the department and were incredibly well respected, and it's heartbreaking.
For those who worked closely with those deputies, the realization of going to work and never coming home really sinks in after a tragedy like this.
As the years go on, you realize how dangerous it is, and it's something that's always in the back of your mind, but you do this job for a reason. You don't really think about it day to day until something like this happens, and then you realize how dangerous it really is.
Back out here live, certainly that is probably on the minds of many of these deputies who are out here right now. You see the back of one of those vans has now opened in the last minute or so. They brought up some of the family members to the back of the van as they take out one of the bodies of the sheriff's deputies who were killed this morning. 3 separate vans, 3 separate families. It certainly strikes you when it happens to one member of law enforcement, but to see 3 vans lined up and them have to take individual families to their respective van, their loved one's van, as they're about to take the bodies of those deputies into the medical examiner's office. I can tell you from where I'm standing, I'm about the only person talking. We are pretty far across the street, but you could hear a pin drop across the street where these deputies are lined up, where these family members are lined up. When they initially opened up the back of that one van, you could see across the street one of the family members just put 2 hands over her face. An incredibly heartbreaking moment to see this unfold in this way, as these family members who have likely had the worst day of their entire life when they got the news earlier today, now here at the medical examiner's office to essentially receive the body of their loved ones, these veteran deputies who have worked their entire lives and entire careers for the Sheriff's Department and for this community, kind of come together in this one sad, heartbreaking moment. David, Michelle?
Yeah, that is it's a very, very difficult time, and in fact, it's hard to put it into words. We're going to keep this shot right now. You could see the reaction of the people around them, some family members, some people who work with them, people taking their hats off, showing the respect. The sheriff is there as well. What I believe will happen is they will take the casket out and walk them through that line of people into the coroner's office. That's what we believe are going to happen. We've seen this, as we've been saying repeatedly, we've seen this too many times, Michelle. They all have different nuances in how they do it. It's always emotional. It's always poetic and beautiful and tragic at the same time. We believe that's what's going to happen here, and they're going to do it 3 times over.
Yeah, I think, seeing it 3 times is, even 3 times the emotion for these families. I mean, you mentioned people removing their hats, and also some people not right this second, but of course wiping away tears as they kind of, just deal with the emotions
right
of
there.
this. Yeah, someone right there, this gentleman here, just getting prepared for, I mean, we've all lost loved ones, right? But, to have your loved one go to work and to not come back, and then to have to end your day, what started as a regular day, to end it here at the medical examiner's office, to see your loved one pulled out of the back of a van, killed in the line of work. I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
Well, it's a premature death when you expect to see them later in the day and then you are not. And then also, they do it in the line of duty. You always know that this sacrifice could happen, and it certainly did. It's a worst case scenario for these 3 families, but it certainly did, as now they have to stand here and witness this, a very difficult moment that started with this terrible tragedy at 7:30 this morning. There's a sheriff right in the middle of it, trying to do the best he can. There's only so much you can do to comfort a family who has lost somebody.
Yeah, and to comfort, his department too. I would imagine that, he's kind of got his hands full with first dealing with and having to notify those families this morning. When we last heard from him in a press conference earlier, he at the time had only spoken with 2 families. Now, presumably all 3 families, hear part of what we're looking at now. But, the sheriff having that difficult task of notifying these families, comforting them, also, dealing with the deputies that he manages, helping them get through this process, also being a strong figure to be strong in the midst of all of this and kind of coordinate this really beautiful, honor and salute. So, for the sheriff, a really heavy day that he probably won't be able to even process until, later today, later this week, who knows, because he's also, the leader of this department that is dealing with a really difficult day.
You saw his press conference earlier today, this afternoon, and he got choked up. He was emotional. But what I found was really interesting and poignant and moving was that he was there, and standing behind him was the chief of LAPD, Jim McDonnell. But just a few short years ago, Jim was the head of the sheriff's department. I'm sure he knew these men as well. Both these leaders of law enforcement in Southern California were very much connected to the sheriff's department and very much probably emotionally connected to what happened today, trying to put a strong face forward in their community. But I'm sure they're both hurting right now, and you certainly heard that in Sheriff Luna's voice today.
Yeah, to see him get choked up, that emotion that he was feeling and that he, emoted during that press conference, I think also is something we can feel even as you're watching the coverage on air. And I mean, our viewers at home probably feel it too. I know there's a lot of heavy hearts watching right now. Right.
And so as we continue to watch this situation, as we continue to watch these families deal with the loss of 3 different heroes from Los Angeles County, on a personal note, I woke up this morning, and then soon after, I heard about the tragedy. I couldn't believe my ears when they said 3 deputies killed. And in this particular training facility, which told me that it was probably SEB, Special Enforcement Bureau, I had the opportunity to, in fact, it's one of my favorite memories as a journalist, to train with the SEB SWAT Academy many years ago. But it gave me the insight as to how elite and special and competitive this group is, and how serious they take their jobs, and how skilled they are as well. So I got to go into the SWAT Academy. Explosives were part of, excuse me, of what we learned. It was a lot of classroom instruction, and then it was on the site, and they went over it and over it and over it to make sure that everybody was safe. And so to hear that something tragic like this had happened, that is so highly unusual and so unlike the skills that these guys possess. So I know something unique must have happened in this situation to cause this to happen, because these guys are truly the best. And to give you an idea of how difficult it is to get into this academy, it's basically, these guys are considered amongst the best in the world. They do this SWAT Academy not for people like me, but for other SWAT members in cities around America and the world. When I did the training, there were Italian SWAT members, there were Navy SEALs. 2 of them got sent home on the first day because they couldn't complete the obstacle course in the allotted time. And you had to do that first just to get into the academy. That's how strict they are, and that's what these guys have to do to be part of this elite unit. And they take it very seriously. And once they are not able to meet the credentials, the criteria to stay in the group, then they're out, and the next one comes in. So it's very competitive, and there's a reason why they're considered the very best in the world. And there's a reason why this is that much more shocking to hear that something happened to where 3 of them lost their lives on the same day with the same incident. I'm so curious when it comes to this investigation and what they find out, and I will guarantee it is something that is highly unusual for this unit, because they are the best.
Right. When you mentioned, just this morning and how the news spread, I think whenever, something like this happens and there's an accident, you maybe think the first question is, okay, well, how did this happen? How long have these, individuals been involved with the department? And not that they're in any fault, but to that point, these are people that have been doing this for decades. They are the elite. Everybody has been saying that. They're heroes, So to that point, whatever the investigation uncovers, it has certainly to be something unique in a situation that they probably had likely never encountered before, to think that whatever they were moving or dealing with was not active, and then to have this explosion happen, killing, these 3 deputies. Also, we saw the scene earlier of just the kind of the debris field with a window blown out of the back of a unit there. So really, just to that point, whatever happened here as this investigation continues will be eye-opening, and the hope is that it doesn't happen again, so nobody else has to deal with this.
There will be protocols that we will learn and put into place because of it.
Seasoned professionals.
It's difficult to do transitions in a time like this, but we're going to need to. So as we continue to watch this situation, we also want to let you know that there are some severe thunderstorms out there that and some folks in our community are being hit by that. So Dallas Raines joins us right now with some details on that. Dallas.
That's right, David. And we love our officers and our firefighters here in Southern California so much, and we are with you, the families. Now look at these thunderstorms that developed today. We knew they were coming, and boy, they really got rolling this afternoon. And early this morning, we